The mercenary hub buzzed with activity as aliens from dozens of worlds gathered in the vast recruitment hall. Traders shouted prices while warriors displayed their skills, and contractors searched for fighters to hire. The center of it all stood Xerath, and nobody came near her. She was Corthony, and that meant trouble. Her species had a reputation that spread across every star system. They were fierce fighters with sharp claws and sharper instincts. Their gray-scaled skin bore natural armor, and their eyes could track movement faster than most species could blink. Xerath stood 7 feet tall with shoulders broader than any human. Scars covered her armor and her weapons showed signs of countless battles. But those weren't the reasons people avoided her. The hub master had explained it. To every contractor who asked, 3 employers had hired Court and the Warriors before, and 3 employers had died. It's not from betrayal exactly, but from being too weak to survive the missions they undertook with Court and the partners. The Warriors fought too hard and expected everyone around them to match their intensity. Most species simply couldn't keep up. Zed had been waiting in this hub for 6 standard months. She watched other mercenaries get hired within days or even hours. She maintained her equipment with perfect discipline. She kept her corner of the hall clean and organized. She caused no trouble and started no fights. None of it mattered. The other mercenaries whispered when she passed, and contractors took one look at her species, designation, and moved on to safer choices. She had stopped hoping weeks ago. That morning started like all the others. Xerath performed her combat meditation at dawn, then checked the job boards knowing she would find nothing. She sharpened her blades and calibrated her energy weapon. She ate her meal of raw protein alone in her corner, while others laughed and talked in groups across the hall. Then the human arrived. Xerath noticed him immediately, because Corthony warriors noticed everything. He was average height for his species, with brown skin and dark hair cut short in a military style. He wore practical clothing without decoration, and carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who had seen combat. He spoke briefly with the hub master, who gestured toward different groups of mercenaries. The human listened and nodded. Then his eyes found Xerath across the crowded hall. She watched him study her for a long moment. Most beings looked away quickly when she made eye contact, but this human held her gaze. He wasn't challenging her, and he showed no fear. He simply looked at her like he was measuring something in his mind. Then he started walking toward her. The hall grew quieter as others noticed. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. A few mercenaries moved out of his path. The hubmaster called out something, but the human ignored him. He crossed the entire length of the hall and stopped 3 paces in front of Xerath. He raised his right hand with palm forward in the traditional Corthane greeting for warriors meeting as equals. Xerath felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Surprised, the human spoke in standard Galactic, but included a phrase in the Corthony language. His pronunciation was decent, though his accent was terrible. He had said the words properly. He honored her as a warrior. She returned the gesture, raising her own clawed hand, palm forward. The human introduced himself as Marcus Webb. He said he was a contractor working for human colonial interests, and he had a mission that required a warrior of exceptional skill. He had researched the mercenaries available in this hub. She was the only one qualified for what he needed. Xerath growled low in her throat. It wasn't a threat, but a sound of skepticism that came naturally to her species. She asked him if he understood what hiring a Corthane meant. Did he know the risks? Or did he know that 3 employers had died? Marcus met her eyes without flinching, said he knew about the deaths and he had read the mission reports. The employers hadn't died because the Corthony warriors betrayed them or failed them. They died because they couldn't survive the level of combat their own missions required. They had hired the best fighters in the galaxy and then couldn't keep up when things got dangerous. That wasn't the warriors' fault. Something shifted in Xerath's chest. This human understood, Marcus continued. He explained that he wasn't looking for someone to fight for him while he hid behind them. He needed a partner who could handle extreme situations because his mission would get dangerous. He said he had military experience and training in cross-species operations. He wouldn't slow her down, and he wouldn't waste her skills. Xerath asked what the mission was. Marcus told her about a human colony trapped between two warring alien factions. The colonists needed evacuation, but the situation was politically complicated and probably militarily hostile. It would require combat skills and tactical thinking. He paid well and offered a long-term contract if the first mission succeeded. She studied him carefully. Corthani's senses could detect lies through changes in scent and body heat. This human believed everything he said. He wasn't trying to manipulate her or use her. He genuinely thought they could work together. For the first time in 6 months, Zareth felt a spark of something like hope. She asked him why he chose her specifically. There were other mercenaries available, and many were less complicated to hire. Marcus smiled slightly. He said he didn't want simple, wanted effective. He had watched her that morning before approaching, saw how she maintained her weapons with precision and discipline. He noticed when she helped a young alien who dropped their equipment even though she gained nothing from the gesture. He observed that other fighters in the hall performed for potential employers, but she simply existed with quiet confidence. Those weren't the actions of a mindless brute, they were the actions of a professional warrior. He extended his hand in the human custom. He offered her a contract for the evacuation mission with terms they could negotiate. He asked if she would work with him. Zareth looked at his hand. It was small compared to her clawed one. His species was weaker and slower than hers. But something in his eyes told her that strength came in different forms. She reached out and clasped his hand carefully. Her grip could crush bone, but she controlled it perfectly. His grip was firm and steady. Around them, the mercenary hall had gone completely silent. Every being present watched this impossible moment. A human and a Corthany making a partnership agreement. Several species made gestures of protection against bad luck. Others whispered that the human had just signed his death warrant. Marcus ignored all of it. He discussed contract terms with Zareth like it was the most natural thing in the galaxy. They agreed on payment and mission parameters. It would leave for his ship in 2 hours after she gathered her equipment. As the crowd slowly returned to normal activity, the hub master approached. He warned Marcus one final time about the risks. 3 dead employers. Unstable warriors. Certain disaster. Marcus thanked him for the concern and said he would take his chances. He looked at Zareth and told her he would meet her at Docking Bay 7 after he left. Zareth stood in her corner and felt something she thought she had lost. Purpose. Direction. The possibility that someone in this vast galaxy saw her as more than a dangerous animal to be avoided. She gathered her weapons and equipment quickly. Whatever happened next, it had to be better than standing alone and unwanted in this hall for another day. She had a partner now. Strange, fearless human who chose her when nobody else would. She would see where that choice led them both. Part 2. Learning to trust the ship was called the Meridian, and it was larger than Zareth expected. Most contractors used small, fast vessels, but this one had cargo space and proper living quarters. Marcus showed her to a room that had been prepared for her with a sleeping platform reinforced. For Corthany, weight and temperature controls adjusted for her species' comfort range. She asked him how he knew these details. About Corthany needs. Marcus said he did his research. If they were going to work together, he needed to understand her basic requirements. It was simple respect. Zareth had never experienced this from an employer. Most expected her to adapt to whatever conditions they provided. This human had prepared for her arrival like she mattered. The first day aboard was tense. Zareth didn't know what to expect from this partnership. She kept waiting for Marcus to show fear or try to establish dominance the way weaker species often did. But he simply went about his work. He plotted their course and maintained the ship systems. He offered her access to the galley and showed her the training space in the cargo hold. That evening, Zareth began her combat routine. Corthany warriors trained every day, without exception. She moved through forms with her blades spinning and slashing in patterns that would terrify most beings. Her movements were fast and violent and precise. Halfway through her routine, she sensed someone watching. Marcus stood at the cargo hold entrance observing her training. She expected him to leave quickly, like most species did when they saw Corthany combat practice. Instead, He entered the hold and asked if she would teach him some techniques. Zaire stopped mid-form. She asked if he was serious. Marcus said he was always looking to improve his skills. He had combat training from human military service, but he had never worked with Corthane methods. If they were going to fight together, he should understand her approach. No one had ever asked to learn from her before. She agreed and spent the next hour teaching him basic Corthany stances and strikes. He couldn't match her speed or strength, but he learned quickly and adapted the techniques to his human capabilities. He asked intelligent questions about why certain movements worked and how they connected to Corthany tactical thinking. For the first time since leaving her, homeworld Zareth felt like a teacher. Instead of a weapon, over the following days, a routine developed between them. They trained together each morning. Marcus showed her human combat techniques, and she taught him Corthany methods. Neither tried to prove their way was superior. They simply shared knowledge. During meals, Marcus asked about Corthany culture. She explained that her people valued strength and directness above everything else. Deception was considered the worst dishonor. A warrior's word was absolute. Combat was not about anger, but about discipline and skill. Marcus listened carefully to everything she said. He asked questions that showed he actually cared about understanding her worldview. He didn't judge Corthany customs as savage, even when they differed greatly from human ones. One evening, Zareth performed her battle meditation. It was a Corthany ritual that involved aggressive movements and fierce vocalizations. Most species found it disturbing. She usually did it in private to avoid making others uncomfortable. But on the ship, she had nowhere private to go. She began the meditation in her quarters, trying to keep her voice down. Marcus must have heard, because he appeared at her door. She expected him to ask her to stop or to quiet down. Instead, he simply said he would make sure she wasn't disturbed and closed the door. He gave her space and privacy without making her feel ashamed of her culture. These small acts accumulated. Marcus ate his meals while she ate raw protein and never showed disgust at her dietary needs. He maintained a schedule that respected her rest cycles. He asked her opinion on navigation choices and mission planning. He treated her like an equal partner. Zareth began to relax in ways she hadn't for years. She found herself talking more and sharing stories from her past. She told Marcus about growing up on the Corthany homeworld, where young warriors trained in great halls under strict masters. She described the pride of earning her first blade and the honor of her first successful hunt. She also told him the harder truths. How her people struggled to find acceptance in the wider galaxy. How other species saw Corthane as nothing but violent brutes good only for fighting. How she had tried to prove herself over and over, but employers only saw her as a dangerous tool. Marcus shared his own history. He had served in human military forces as an instructor for special operations teams. His specialty was cross-cultural cooperation, teaching humans and aliens to work together effectively. He explained his philosophy that every species had unique strengths, and the key was understanding how those strengths complemented each other rather than competing. He said he left military service because he got tired of politics, interfering with practical cooperation. He became an independent contractor so he could choose his own missions and his own partners. When he heard about the colony evacuation mission, he knew he needed someone who wouldn't hesitate when things got dangerous. That's why he researched Corthany warriors, and that's why he chose Zareth. She asked him if he was afraid of her. Marcus considered the question seriously. He said he respected her capabilities and he wouldn't want to fight against her. But fear wasn't the right word. He trusted that she was a disciplined warrior who controlled her strength. He had more faith in her self-control than he had in most beings he met. That answer meant more too Zareth than any praise could have. On the 5th day of their journey, the ship's alarms sounded. 3 vessels were approaching fast on an intercept course. Marcus identified them as pirates, common raiders who preyed on independent ships. Zareth immediately moved to the weapons station. Her combat instincts came alive. She asked Marcus if he wanted her to handle the threat while he piloted. Marcus shook his head. He said they would handle it together. The pirates attempted to board through the airlocks. Zareth positioned herself at the primary entry point, while Marcus covered the secondary. The first pirates came through, expecting easy prey. They found a Korthani warrior instead. Zareth moved through them like a storm. Her blades cut through their light armor, and her claws tore weapons from their grip. She was fast and brutal and perfectly controlled. Behind her, she heard energy weapon fire as Marcus engaged the secondary boarding team. More pirates poured in, trying to overwhelm her with numbers, but then Marcus was there fighting beside her. He moved with practiced efficiency, taking targets she couldn't reach and covering angles she couldn't watch. They didn't need to communicate. He read her movements and adapted to her rhythm. Together, they drove the pirates back. The enemy fighters retreated to their ships and broke off the attack. The entire engagement lasted less than 5 minutes. In the aftermath, Marcus checked the ship systems for damage while Zareth secured the weapons. Neither was injured. They had fought together like they had trained together for years instead of days. Marcus told her that was excellent work. She had been right about the primary entry point. Being the main threat, Zareth looked at him and felt something shift in her understanding. This human had just fought beside her without hesitation. He trusted her instincts and followed her lead in combat. More than that, he contributed meaningfully to the fight instead of being dead weight she had to protect. She told him in Korthani that he fought with honor. In her language, it was the highest compliment one warrior could give another. Marcus smiled. He said honor recognized honor for the first time since leaving. Her homeworld Zareth felt like she had found what she had been searching for. Not an employer, but a true partner. Someone who saw her as a warrior, not a monster. Someone who fought with her instead of hiding behind her. The rest of the journey passed quickly. They continued training and talking. They planned their approach to the colony evacuation mission. They worked together on ship maintenance and shared meals. By the time they reached the colony, World Zareth knew something had changed permanently. She had spent 6 months alone, and unwanted, believing her reputation would follow her forever. But Marcus had looked past reputation to see the warrior beneath. He gave her respect when others gave her fear. Whatever happened in the mission ahead, she would fight with everything she had. Not because he paid her, but because he earned her loyalty. Because he took her hand when no one else would, as they prepared for descent to the colony. Marcus asked if she was ready. Jaith checked her weapons one final time. She told him she was ready for anything, and for the first time in a long time, she actually believed it. Part 3. The mission the colony was called New Haven, and it sat on a world caught between two hostile alien factions. The settlers were human farmers and engineers who had established their community in what they thought was neutral territory. That was before the Zelthic Empire and the Orvan Collective decided the planet held strategic value. Marcus and Zareth landed at the colony spaceport and immediately sensed the tension. The settlers looked exhausted and afraid. Guard towers that should have been empty were manned constantly. Supply warehouses showed scorch marks from recent attacks. The colony leader was named Sarah Chen, and she met them at the landing pad. She was a middle-aged woman with gray streaking her black hair and worry lines deep around her eyes. She looked at Zareth with obvious fear, but Marcus introduced them calmly, and Sarah controlled her reaction. She led them to the colony operations center and explained the situation. The Zelthic and Oravan had been fighting over this region for 2 years. Neither wanted humans here, but galactic law prevented them from directly attacking civilian settlements. So they used other methods. Supply ships mysteriously exploded. Communication arrays stopped working. Settlers disappeared during night work shifts. Last week, the attacks escalated. Armed forces hit the outlying farms. 3 families were killed. Sarah knew they couldn't survive much longer. She had contacted Marcus because she heard he completed impossible extractions. Marcus asked how many colonists needed evacuation. Sarah said 243, including 70 children. Esh calculated numbers silently. That many people would require multiple transport ships and careful coordination. It would take time they might not have. Marcus asked about the colony's defensive capabilities. Sarah showed him what they had. basic energy barriers around the main settlement, hunting rifles converted to defensive weapons. Colonists with no military training trying to guard their homes. It wasn't enough, and everyone in the room knew it. Marcus began planning the evacuation. He had 3 transport ships arriving within 2 days. They would need to gather the colonists from outlying areas and protect them during loading. Zareth studied the maps and suggested defensive positions. That night, Zareth took first watch on the perimeter. The colony was quiet under the alien stars. She heard Marcus approach before he spoke. He asked if she sensed anything wrong. She told him yes. The attacks had been escalating, which meant someone wanted the colonists dead soon. Waiting 2 days for transports felt dangerous, Marcus agreed. He said he had the same feeling. Something about this situation didn't match the pattern. The Zelthic and Orvan were using the humans as an excuse to fight each other, but neither side gained anything from killing colonists slowly. Zareth understood what he meant. This felt like preparation for something bigger. They were right. The attack came at dawn. Zareth heard the engines first and sounded the alarm. Dropships descended from orbit fast and aggressive. These weren't Zelthic or Orvan military vessels. They were mercenary transports. Marcus cursed and ran for the operations center. Zareth moved to the main gate. The first mercenaries came through with heavy weapons and tactical armor. They were professional soldiers, not random raiders. The colony defenders opened fire, but their hunting rifles barely scratched military-grade armor. The mercenaries advanced methodically, pushing toward the residential areas. They weren't trying to loot or capture. They were trying to kill everyone. Zareth met them at the main square. The first squad saw her and hesitated. One soldier identified her species and shouted a warning. Korthani warriors had a reputation even among professional mercenaries. But they had orders in superior numbers. They opened fire. Zareth moved. She was among them before they could track her speed. Her blades found gaps in armor, and her claws tore through weaker sections. Energy blasts hit where she had been standing, but she was never still long enough for accurate targeting. She fought the way her people had fought for generations, with perfect discipline and overwhelming force. The squad broke and retreated. But more mercenaries poured into the colony. Zareth couldn't be everywhere at once. Then Marcus appeared with 20 armed colonists. He had organized them into a defensive unit with clear firing lines and overlapping coverage. He directed them to support Zareth without getting in her way. The colonists provided covering fire while she engaged enemy soldiers in close combat. Together, they held the main square. More mercenaries tried to flank through side streets. Marcus anticipated the movement and repositioned his colonist defenders. He fought alongside them with calm precision, making every shot count. He wasn't as fast as Zareth or as strong, but his tactical mind turned frightened farmers into an effective fighting force. The mercenary commander made a mistake. He committed his reserve forces all at once, trying to overwhelm the defenders through sheer numbers. But Zareth and Marcus had been waiting for exactly that move. Zareth charged directly into the enemy formation, drawing their attention and fire. She moved in patterns that herded the mercenaries into a compressed group. Marcus directed the colonist defenders to concentrate fire on that exact position. The crossfire caught the mercenaries in a deadly trap. The enemy force shattered. Soldiers retreated to their dropships under heavy casualties. The commander tried to rally them, but Zareth cut through his command squad. Without leadership, the mercenaries fled. The battle ended as quickly as it began. The colony was damaged, but intact. Casualties were surprisingly light. The defenders had won against professional soldiers. Sarah. Chen stared at Zareth and Marcus like she couldn't believe what she had witnessed. She asked how they did that. Marcus said they worked together. Zareth's combat skills combined with tactical coordination created something neither could do alone. But Zareth understood something Marcus hadn't said aloud. They won because they trusted each other completely. She knew he would position the colonists correctly. He knew she would drive the enemy into his trap. That level of trust couldn't be faked or forced. It came from the partnership they had built. They spent the rest of the day securing the colony and tending wounded. Marcus worked on identifying the mercenary company. Zareth helped repair defensive positions. When the transport ships arrived 2 days later, the evacuation went smoothly as the last colonists boarded. Stara thanked them both. She said she had been afraid when she saw a Korthani warrior, but Zareth saved them all. She asked Zareth why she fought so hard for humans she didn't know. Zareth told her that. Marcus hired her to do a job and she honored her contracts. But also these colonists were innocent people trapped by forces beyond their control. Protecting them was the right thing to do. Korthani valued strength, but also honor. Killing innocent farmers took no honor. Sarah looked at Marcus and said he found an amazing partner. Marcus agreed. He said Zareth was the best warrior he had ever worked with. After the transports left, Marcus and Zareth remained at the colony. He finished his investigation into the mercenary attack. What he found was disturbing. One of the alien factions had hired the mercenaries to kill the colonists and blame it on the other faction. It was meant to justify a larger war. The humans were just pawns in someone else's game. Zareth felt anger at the casual cruelty. Using innocent lives as political tools disgusted her. Marcus said this was why he took these missions. Because someone needed to stand between the powerful and the powerless. He was glad he had Zareth with him. He couldn't have saved those people alone. She told him she couldn't have saved them alone either. His tactical mind and leadership made the difference. They succeeded because they combined their strengths. As they prepared to leave the colony, Aquaz received multiple communication requests. Word of their success had spread fast. Contractors wanted to hire them. Other Korthani warriors were asking how Zareth found a human partner. Even the mercenary guild was taking notice of their unusual team, Marcus asked. Zareth, if she wanted to continue working together. He had more missions available, and he would value her. Partnership. Zareth looked at this strange human who changed her life by simply taking her hand when no one else would. Who treated her with respect when others showed only fear. Who fought beside her like a true partner. She told him she would be honored to continue. Their partnership, Marcus smiled and said they made a good team. Zareth agreed. They did make a good team. And she suspected the galaxy was about to learn exactly what that meant. Part 4. The test news traveled fast across the galaxy, and their success at New Haven made them famous. Within weeks, every mercenary hub and contractor network knew about the human in Korthani who fought together. Some called it impossible. Others called it dangerous. Everyone wanted to know more. Contract offers flooded their communications. Wealthy clients wanted to hire them. Other mercenaries wanted to join their team. Marcus turned down most of the offers and accepted only missions that matched their principles. They took jobs protecting colonies and evacuating civilians from war zones. They avoided anything that required attacking innocents or serving corrupt governments. Zareth found satisfaction in this work. For the first time in her life, she was using her warrior skills for something meaningful. She wasn't just fighting for credits. She was protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. Marcus shared her values, and together, they made a difference. But their growing reputation attracted attention they didn't want. The Korthani. High Command sent an envoy. He arrived at a station where Marcus and Zareth were resupplying between missions. His name was Corvel, and he was a decorated general, covered in honor scars. 4 elite warriors accompanied. Him wearing ceremonial armor that marked them as champions, Corvel demanded to speak with Zareth privately. Marcus offered to give them space, but Zareth refused. She said anything Corvel wanted to say could be said in front of her partner. Corvel's eyes narrowed at the word partner. He asked if Zareth understood how her actions looked to their people. A Korthane warrior, serving a human. Fighting under human direction. It was shameful. It made their entire species look weak. Zareth felt anger rising but controlled it. She told Corvel that she served no one. She worked with Marcus as an equal partner. They made decisions together and fought together. There was no shame in partnership. Corvel said the High Command disagreed. They believed Marcus was manipulating her somehow, using human trickery to control a Korthani warrior. It was the only explanation for why she would willingly follow a weaker species. Marcus started to respond. but Zareth stopped him with a raised hand. She stepped closer to Corvel and spoke in pure Corthany. She told him that she had spent years being treated like a dangerous animal. Employers feared her and other mercenaries avoided her. She stood alone and unwanted because everyone saw her species instead of seeing her. Then Marcus walked up and took her hand. He showed respect when others showed fear. He valued her counsel when others just wanted her strength. He trusted her judgment and fought beside her as an equal. That was true Corthoni values. Recognizing strength and honoring it. Marcus embodied those values better than any Corthony she had met in the wider galaxy. Corvel listened in silence. Then he said the High Command would not accept her words alone. If she truly believed this partnership was based on strength, then she would prove it. He challenged them to a trial by combat. Traditional Corthoni rules. Zareth and Marcus against Corvel and 2 of his champions. If they won, the High Command would recognize their partnership. If they lost, Zareth would return to Corthony's space and end this shameful display. Marcus asked what would happen to him if they lost. Corvel said the human's fate didn't concern the Corthony. Zareth growled. She said if they fought, then all participants faced equal stakes. If Corvel wanted to challenge them, then he risked his honor the same way they risked theirs. Otherwise, he was just a bully hiding behind tradition. Several of Corvel's warriors shifted at the insult, but Corvel himself remained calm. He said Zareth still had fire. Good, she would need it. He agreed to her terms. Honor stakes on both sides. The trial would happen in 3 days at the station arena. All Corthine in the sector would witness it. After they left, Marcus asked Zareth if she was sure about this. Corvel was legendary among Corthony warriors. His champions were some of the best their species produced. This wouldn't be like fighting mercenaries or pirates. Zareth knew he was right. This would be the hardest fight of her life. But she also knew she couldn't back down. If they refused the challenge, everything they built would be meaningless. Other Corthoni would see her as a coward. Worse, they would see Marcus as someone who hid behind his partner when real danger appeared. She told Marcus they would win. They had something Corvel and his warriors didn't have. They had trust. They had practiced fighting together. They knew each other's movements and thoughts. That would be their advantage. Marcus nodded slowly. He said they should spend the next 3 days training specifically for this fight. Corthony combat rules were different from normal mercenary work. They needed to prepare. They trained constantly for 3 days. Zareth taught Marcus everything she knew about traditional Corthony combat trials. The rules allowed blades and claws, but no energy weapons. Killing was forbidden, but serious injury was expected. The fight ended when one side couldn't continue or surrendered. There would be no help from outside and no breaks. Marcus focused on speed and evasion. He couldn't match Corthony's strength, so he needed to avoid direct confrontations. He practiced reading Zaretha's movements so they could coordinate without speaking. She taught him pressure points on Corthony anatomy where a human could hurt them despite the strength difference. On the day of the trial, the arena was packed with Corthony from across the sector. Many came to watch Corvel prove that humans and Corthony couldn't work as equals. Others came hoping to see something different. Word had spread about Zareth and Marcus. Some younger Corthony warriors were curious. Some were hopeful. The arena was traditional design. A circular space with hard sand flooring and stone walls. No weapons provided. Fighters brought their own blades. The audience stood in raised galleries surrounding the combat area. Corvel entered with his 2 champions. All 3 were massive and moved with the deadly grace of lifelong warriors. Their armor was minimal, following trial custom. Their blades were sharp and well-maintained. They looked confident. Zareth and Marcus entered from the opposite side. The size difference was obvious. Even Zareth was smaller than Corvel, and Marcus looked tiny compared to any Corthony. But they walked together with calm confidence. They had a plan. The trial master announced the terms. Honor combat until one side yielded or couldn't continue. The trial began. Corvel's team moved fast, trying to separate Marcus from Zareth. If they could isolate the human, the fight would end quickly. But Zareth anticipated this and stayed close to Marcus. When the first champion attacked, she intercepted with her blade while Marcus struck at exposed areas. With his smaller knife, the champion expected to overpower Zareth quickly, but Marcus's attacks distracted him. Every time he committed to a strike, Marcus hit a nerve cluster or joint. It didn't do major damage, but it added up. The champion grew frustrated. Corval circled looking for an opening. He was patient and smart. He directed his warriors with small gestures, coordinating their attacks. The second champion tried to flank Marcus, forcing him to divide his attention, but Marcus and Zareth moved like they were connected. When she shifted left, he shifted right. When he dropped low, she covered high. They defended each other instinctively. The Corthany warriors were individually stronger, but Marcus and Zareth fought as a perfect unit. The fight lasted 20 brutal minutes. Both of Corval's champions went down, not from single devastating blows, but from accumulated damage. Marcus hit the same pressure points repeatedly, while Zareth prevented them from landing killing strikes. Eventually, both champions couldn't continue. That left Corval alone against both of them. He was breathing hard but not defeated. He told Zareth that she fought well, but now she would face a true challenge. He attacked with speed that shocked even Zareth. His blade work was masterful. Zareth met him head-on. Their blades clashed with ringing impacts. Marcus circled trying to support, but Corval was too skilled. He kept Zareth between himself and Marcus, denying the human chances to help. The duel between the two Corthony was magnificent. Corval had more experience, but Zareth had desperation. She fought for everything she and Marcus had built. She fought to prove that partnership and respect mattered more than blind tradition. Corval drove her back with a combination that would have defeated most warriors. She stumbled, and he moved in for the finishing strike. But Marcus was there. He dove between them, taking a glancing blow that would have ended Zareth. His small knife found the gap in Corval's defense that Zareth's size couldn't exploit. Corval roared in pain and surprise. The human had actually hurt him. But more than that, the human had taken a hit meant for his partner. That kind of sacrifice was deeply Corthany. Warriors protecting warriors. Strength supporting strength said, "Use the opening." Her blade found Corval's side. Not a killing blow, but a serious wound. Corval dropped to one knee, breathing hard. Blood ran from wounds inflicted by both partners. The trial master waited for Corval's decision. He could yield or continue fighting until he collapsed. Everyone in the arena watched in silence. Corval looked at Marcus, who was also bleeding from the glancing blow. Then he looked at Zareth, standing ready to continue if needed. He saw the truth he had been denying. These two had something his warriors lacked: complete trust and perfect coordination. Corval yielded. He told the trial master that he had been defeated fairly. The crowd erupted in noise. Some Corthany celebrated while others argued. The trial master declared Zareth and Marcus victorious. Corval stood slowly with his warriors helping him. He approached Zareth and Marcus. He told Zareth that she was right. He had been wrong to question her partnership. He saw now what made it work. The human fought with honor and courage. He protected his partner and contributed to victory. That was worthy of respect. He told Marcus that he underestimated humans. Their adaptability and tactical thinking combined with Corthany's strength created something powerful. Perhaps the High Command had much to learn from this example. Corval formally recognized their partnership before all the assembled Corthany. He said that Zareth brought honor to their species by showing that strength came in many forms. Working with other species who shared Corthony values wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. As the crowd dispersed, Zareth and Marcus left the arena together. They were both injured, but victorious. They had proved what they knew all along: that partnership built on mutual respect could overcome any challenge. The galaxy was beginning to understand what they already knew: that sometimes the fiercest warrior just needed someone willing to walk up and take her hand. Part 5. A New Beginning. The trial changed everything. Within days, recordings of the fight spread across the galactic network. People from hundreds of worlds watched a human and Korthony defeat 3 elite warriors through coordination and trust. The response was overwhelming. Other Korthony warriors started seeking human partners. Young humans with military backgrounds contacted Marcus asking how to work with Korthane. Mercenary companies that previously avoided hiring Korthony suddenly wanted human Korthony teams. The combination of Korthony combat prowess and human tactical thinking became legendary. But not everyone celebrated. Some Korthony traditionalists called Korval's decision shameful. Some human groups worried that partnering with aggressive species was dangerous. Politicians from various factions saw these partnerships as potential threats to their power structures. Marcus and Zareth received threats alongside the partnership requests. Anonymous messages warned them to stop promoting cross-species cooperation. Others accused them of undermining traditional power structures. A few threats were serious enough that they had to increase security. They were recovering from injuries at a station medical facility when Sarah Chen contacted them. The colony leader from New Haven had settled her people on a new world and heard about the trial. She offered them something unexpected: land on the new colony and resources to build whatever they wanted. She said they saved her people and those people wanted to support them. Marcus and Zareth discussed the offer carefully. They could continue taking mercenary contracts. The pay was excellent, and their reputation guaranteed constant work. But both of them felt like they were reacting to events instead of shaping them. They had started something bigger than themselves. Other species were watching and trying to follow their example. Those new partnerships needed guidance. X said they should create something permanent. A place where different species could learn to work together properly. Not just Korthani and humans, but any species willing to trust each other, Marcus agreed. He had trained cross-cultural military units before. He knew how to teach cooperation between different species. With Zareth's combat expertise and cultural knowledge, they could create the first real academy for mixed species teams. They accepted Sarah's offer and began planning. The facility would provide training in combat cooperation, cultural understanding, and tactical coordination. They would accept students from any species, but the standards would be extremely high. This wasn't about creating random partnerships. It was about teaching species how to truly work together as equals. The construction took 6 months. The academy included training halls, living quarters adjusted for multiple species needs, classrooms, and tactical simulation rooms. Marcus handled administrative setup while Zareth designed the training programs. They recruited instructors from various species who understood cooperation and respect. When they announced the academy opening, applications flooded in. Korthony warriors who wanted to escape isolation. Humans with military backgrounds seeking purpose. Dozens of other species who felt marginalized or misunderstood by mainstream society. Everyone who applied shared one thing. They believed that working together was better than standing alone. Marcus and Zareth selected 40 students for the first class. 20 partnerships from different species combinations. Some were Korthony human teams. Others paired species no one expected to work together. A massive Bronthi engineer with a tiny Kixari pilot, a methodical Zentari analyst with an intuitive Yorvan scout. Each partnership had to prove they could communicate and respect each other before acceptance. The training was brutal. Students learned combat techniques from multiple martial traditions. They studied each other's cultures and communication styles. They practiced tactical coordination until they could move as units. Marcus taught human adaptability and strategic thinking. Zareth taught Korthony discipline and honor codes. Other instructors added their species expertise. Many students struggled with the cultural differences. A Korthony warrior had trouble understanding his human partner's need for verbal encouragement. A human student couldn't grasp why his Zentari partner found emotional displays confusing. But the instructors pushed them to work through these barriers. Real cooperation required understanding, not just tolerating differences. 3 months into training, the academy received an urgent contract. A slaver operation was attacking multiple colony worlds. They targeted species considered weak or undesirable. The slavers had sophisticated operations and military-grade equipment. Local defense forces couldn't stop them, Marcus wanted to handle it with instructors, but Zareth disagreed. She said the students were ready for real-world experience. This was exactly why they came to the academy. To learn how to make a difference, Marcus worried about risking students on their first mission. But he also remembered his own military training. Sometimes the best teaching happened under real pressure. They agreed to take the first class on the anti-slavery operation. Full instructors would accompany them, but students would handle primary responsibilities. They spent 2 weeks planning the operation. Student teams researched the slaver network, finding locations and identifying key figures. They studied slaver tactics and equipment. They practiced assault scenarios until every team knew their role perfectly. The strike was coordinated across 5 worlds simultaneously. Each student team had specific objectives. Some teams evacuated captured slaves. Others disabled slaver ships. Some engaged slaver guards, while others secured evidence for prosecution. The operation showcased everything the Academy taught. A Korthani warrior and her human partner breached a slaver compound, combining her strength with his technical skills. They freed 20 prisoners without casualties. Another team with a Bronthian Kiksari disabled an entire slaver fleet by using the Bronthi's engineering knowledge and the Kiksari's piloting to sabotage ships from inside. The most impressive moment came when a young Korthani student named Reckler was separated from his human partner during a firefight. Traditional Korthani training would have him charge forward alone, but Academy training taught him cooperation. He held position and called for support. His partner maneuvered to rejoin him. Together they completed their objective with no injuries. Reckler chose partnership over individual glory. That choice represented everything Marcus and Zareth wanted to teach. The operation succeeded completely. The slaver network was destroyed. Hundreds of prisoners were freed. Galactic authorities arrested the slaver leadership. And most importantly, every student team succeeded in their objectives. 0 student casualties and perfect coordination. News of the operation spread even faster than news of the original trial. People saw that mixed species teams weren't just a novelty. They were effective. They could accomplish missions that traditional forces struggled with. The Academy received thousands of new applications. Governments and corporations wanted to hire Academy graduates. Other trainers asked to study their methods. Marcus and Zareth stood together watching the second class begin their training. 60 new students from even more species combinations. The training halls that once seemed too large now felt crowded with potential. Zed said she never imagined this when she stood alone in that mercenary hub. She thought she would always be the fierce warrior everyone avoided, the dangerous Korthani no one wanted. Marcus reminded her that she was still fierce and dangerous. But now, people understood that fierce and dangerous wasn't the same as unstable or uncontrollable. She was disciplined and honorable. She always had been. The galaxy just needed time to see it. She asked him why he took the chance. He could have hired any mercenary in that hall. Why choose the one everyone feared? Marcus smiled. He said he saw what others missed. A professional warrior maintaining her equipment with perfect discipline. Someone who helped others without expecting anything in return. Someone who waited with quiet dignity while others made themselves look impressive. Those weren't the actions of a mindless brute. They were the actions of someone with strong principles waiting for an employer worthy of her skills. He said he didn't take a chance on her. He made the obvious choice. The best warrior available who shared his values. Everything that happened after came from that simple decision to respect someone others feared. Zareth looked at the training students. Young warriors from dozens of species, learning to trust each other. Learning that cooperation was strength, not weakness. That respecting differences created something more powerful than uniformity ever could, she told Marcus that he changed her life by taking her hand that day. He gave her purpose and partnership. He showed her that she didn't have to be alone. Marcus said she changed his life too. She showed him that his belief in cross-species cooperation wasn't naive idealism. It could work. It did work. They proved it together, and now they were teaching others to prove it too. A group of students approached asking for help with a training scenario. Marcus and Zareth walked over together to assist. They answered questions and demonstrated techniques. They showed the students how real partners communicated and moved. The students watched closely and tried to imitate what they saw. Later that evening, after training ended, Marcus and Zareth prepared for their next mission. Governments were requesting their assistance with increasingly complex situations. They had become more than mercenaries or teachers. They had become symbols of what cooperation could achieve. Zareth checked her weapons with the same careful precision she always used. Marcus reviewed mission briefings and supply lists. They worked in comfortable silence built from months of partnership. Marcus asked if she ever missed the simple days when they just took contracts and fought together without all the responsibility. Zareth considered the question. She said sometimes she missed the simplicity, but she wouldn't trade what they built for anything. They started something important. Other species who felt isolated or misunderstood now had proof that they could find partnership and respect. That mattered more than simple contracts. She said they showed the galaxy that the fierce alien warrior everyone feared just needed someone brave enough to walk up and take her hand. And once that hand was taken, everything else became possible. Marcus agreed. He said their partnership proved something humans always believed. That strength came in many forms, and the strongest teams were built on mutual respect, not dominance. Every species had value and unique capabilities. The key was finding the right combinations and teaching them to work together. The next morning, they departed for their new mission. The academy would continue training students under their instructors. More partnerships would form. More teams would prove that cooperation worked. The galaxy was changing slowly but definitely. As their ship left the colony, Zareth looked back at the academy buildings. She thought about standing alone in that mercenary hub. 6 months ago, unwanted, avoided, believing her reputation would follow her forever. Now, she was part of something bigger than herself. She had a true partner and friend. She was teaching others to find the same trust and respect she found. The fierce warrior was fierce no longer alone. Marcus set course for their destination and asked if she was ready for whatever came next. Zareth told him she was ready for anything. They would face it together, and that made all the difference.